You're listening to the Greek's Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Hristodoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greek's Gridiron, and a happy football Sunday to you all. I am Ethan Hristodoulou, and today, as we do earlier on the Sundays, we're previewing Monday Night Football action, this one specifically surrounding the Cincinnati Bengals and the Denver Broncos. If you haven't already, we previewed Jets and Dolphins first already, so make sure you go give that a watch, figure out my thoughts. You can obviously see who I have as the winner, but maybe if you're curious as to why I think or how I think the game's going to go, definitely recommend checking that out once you're done here. But that being said, we're recording as Vikings and Steelers is happening, so just keep that in mind. I literally have no idea what the result of any of these Sunday's game slates are going to be. I kind of have an idea based off the way things are happening with Minnesota and Pittsburgh, but beyond that, we're still recording before those kickoff games at 1 o'clock Eastern. So we'll dive in. We'll take a look at this, of course, Broncos and Bengals matchup. This one going to be in Denver. Now, here's the deal. Cincinnati, in the situation that they're in right now, they're kind of hanging on for dear life. That's probably the easiest way you could put that. That being said, Denver themselves, not really in the greatest position as well. 1-2 start. Probably should be 2-1, but ultimately let that game slip away from them against the Indianapolis Colts. And you're in a division right now where the Chargers look very legit. The Chiefs obviously exist in your division. We'll see what happens with them and whether they drop to 1-3 or maybe move to 2-2 on the season. And then you, of course, have a Raiders team that's in a bit of an interesting spot themselves right now. But as of right now, not where Denver, I think, wanted to be at this stage in the season. Now, I think pass rush overall is going to be key in deciding how this game shakes up. You look at the way these two teams stack up and just the way they get after the quarterback and how effective they are. It's a little bit night and day. Now, Jake Browning struggled, obviously, these last couple of games. A ton of interceptions over his first two games. I guess not starting that second week because Joe Burrow got knocked out during the game, but you know what I mean. He took over pretty early in the game. He played for a majority of the contest. In the two games that Jake Browning has played, it's been tough. Bo Nix, on the other hand, he's definitely been getting rattled by some pressure, but he's also just had some errant passes that leave you wondering what the heck's going on. So you have two imperfect situations, I would say, at quarterback coming into this game here. I do give the edge to Bo Nix, just kind of looking at everything from a 1,000-yard view, but it's not exactly the most enticing or perfect quarterback matchup by any means. Now, when you look at Denver and the way they're able to get after the quarterback, they currently lead the NFL in sacks with 12. Their pressure rate is sitting at a whopping 50.4%, which is tied for first in the NFL. They have 63 total pressures, which is good for second behind only Seattle. And then they're, on top of that, getting after it, blitzing these quarterbacks at a whopping 39.2%. Denver is aggressive. They get after the quarterback. They create problems for quarterbacks. And not only do they do that, but they do it effectively and better than literally anybody in the NFL right now when you start looking at where these numbers and where they all stand are. Now, Cincinnati on the flip side, not the same thing, and it's not really close either. 6 sacks so far this season puts them in the bottom third of the NFL. 31.4% pressure rate puts them at 23rd. 38 total pressures is middle of the pack at about 17th. And on top of that, they don't bring extra pressure at all. In fact, they're the only team under a 10% blitz rate. Only team that doesn't have double digits. It's right below at 9.9%, but they don't like to send a 10 of extra utility after the quarterback. It's typically just their 4-man rush. Let's see what we can do. Everyone else is dropping back in coverage, playing their game. Now, Bo Nix is completing about 40% of his passes this season against pressure, which is very similar to where he was at last season. It actually might be a little bit lower. So he was better in his rookie season, air quotes for those of you that are just listening. And then Jake Browning is not too far ahead of him. He's only one position up. Bo Nix is 5th worst among qualified quarterbacks against the pressure as far as completion percentage goes. Jake Browning is right in front of him at 6th with about 41% of his passes. So about a 1% differential between these two QBs. Whoever can get after that quarterback, I do feel like is probably going to win this football game just based on that alone, with how wild the numbers are, with how poor the quarterbacks play under pressure, and also just how successful a team like Denver has been and how not so successful a team like Cincinnati has. Now, as far as like the offense goes, like we mentioned, has not been perfect for Bo Nix this season. I think it would be smart for them to maybe slow down the passing attack a little bit and just kind of focus on attacking with the run game. Cincinnati's allowing about 120 yards per game so far this season, and they're paired with the 7th worst run stuff rate on top of that, according to Next Gen Stats. Meanwhile, Denver hanging right around about 120 yards per game themselves the last couple, or at least each week this season. Their season average is about 130. Big performance in week number 1 helps inflate that number, but at least the last 2 games, they were just shy of 120 yards in both of those on the ground altogether. I think the sole purpose of this is literally just taking a little bit of the pressure off of Bo Nix. He looked really good last season, and I think surprised a lot of people. He had his flaws, but he surprised a lot, and I think that pressure combined with second season now, you're working with Sean Payton, who did so much with Drew Brees. Maybe a little bit of that weight is getting somewhat heavy on his shoulders. Now, if you can take some of that pressure off him, get the run game going, you have some fun running backs to work with, I think Bo Nix, who, as it stands right now, completing about 64% of his passes, he only has 535 yards, which ranks 26th amongst qualified QBs, 3 picks to 5 touchdowns. It's one of those things you want to see. Just help him out. Help him out is kind of where my head is at there. On the flip side, you can almost kind of say the same thing for Cincinnati as well. Denver hasn't been perfect against the run defensively. They're allowing about 115 yards on the ground so far per game this season. And they've been good with preventing teams from hitting like those home run runs, but it's more so just over the duration of the game, the numbers do start to stack up eventually. So they let teams move, but they don't let them hit those home run shots on the ground. Cincinnati themselves, I forgot to check this, but I'm pretty sure based off of not having rushed for more than 53 yards in a game, they've got to be ranked 32nd in the NFL. If they're not, it's 30 or 31. But I don't think anyone's averaging for less than Cincinnati is on the ground per game this season. Like I said, Denver's at least shown that teams can move over the duration of a ball game. You've got to help out Jake Browning. He's thrown way too many interceptions at this point, and it's clear we are not maybe getting the Jake Browning that everyone was kind of thinking of when he initially stepped in, going back to like 2023 for Joe Burrow. Back then, everyone thought, all right, serviceable quarterback. He won some games, 4-3 record. It has not been even close to that so far. So I do think that you want to help out your quarterback here if you're Cincinnati and try to find something on the ground. Like, you can't just be going 50 yards per game on the ground. That is just not going to work. So get the ball moving on the ground, challenge this defensive front, see what you can do, try to help out Jake Browning, because right now he's really having a tough time with so much pressure on his shoulders, because this was like do or die for Cincinnati, and a lot of it was doing with Joe Burrow under center. Now that he's not there, feels like we're heading the other direction. And one just small thing before we make our prediction here. I think ball protection is definitely going to come in. Big play for this one. 8 total offensive turnovers in the last 2 weeks for Cincinnati has been an absolute nightmare. Denver's taken away the ball 4 times already as a defense this season, and something tells me we're going to see another takeaway or 2. This was not a very hard decision to make, especially with the game being in Denver. I look at this as basically it's Denver's game to lose, and I would be legitimately shocked if they blow this one. So I do have the Denver Broncos winning this matchup here, and I have them winning fairly comfortably at 27-16. There's a lot that goes into this one that just sways Denver's way, and I can sit here and lay out hypotheticals for how Cincinnati could go about winning this football game. Just not one of those that I'm super confident in for Cincinnati to pull out. Maybe like if they were in the jungle in Cincinnati, I'd feel a little bit better about it, but them being in Denver, higher altitude, you have the backup quarterback who's just turning the ball over. Your offense has looked like a nightmare. The defense did not look great last week either. There's just a lot of things snowballing downhill the wrong way for Cincinnati, and going up against a Denver team that has quite a bit more on the line, I would say, and considering just the division that they're playing in, Denver, I think, has a little more in the tank for this one. So give me the Broncos, 27-16. Good W for them. But those are my predictions for week number 4 in full. If you haven't checked out the other Monday night game, if you haven't checked out my other predictions for earlier in the week, I do them every Friday. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. But that being said, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it, as always. And I will see you all on Tuesday for Power Rankings, Tier List, and we'll break down and react to all the games from this past week.